So here's an overview about looking at soil biology and root structures within the soil. So what you're going to do is you're going to dig a 1 foot wide by 1 foot long by 1 foot deep um, hole in the ground. And it's really nice if you are able to bring a tarp out there. Place a tarp down as you dig up your soil, place that on the tarp. That way, especially when we're looking for worms, it makes it harder for them to wiggle back down into the ground and have us not see them. So again, the ground is frozen, so I won't be digging today. But what you do, you'll dig out your 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot, so your 1 cubic foot of soil, and you want to place it out so that you can look at it. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be breaking it apart, looking at roots, and also looking for worms. In each tablespoon of soil, there's more living organisms than there are people on this earth. That is awesome. But when we're out in the field determining, how many soil organisms there are, we can't see them with the naked eye. And to bring out, microscope and all that technology to a field just isn't feasible. And so what we do is we count earthworms to give us a general overview of the soil life. Earthworms are easy to see. They generally follow the general population of soil organisms. So it's a really great way to be able to go out into a field and easily determine the health of your soil biology. And so we'll go out, we'll dig it out, and as we're looking through all of our soils, we want to just continue to break it apart. Oh, here's that. If you watch the vest video, this is the 5, the one with a terrible soil structure. It's very hard to break. When the soils are wet, they're easier. So we'll just break it down, and we'll continue to break it down into smaller pieces to look for worms. You want to tally up how many worms that you find in your 1 cubic foot of soil and write that down on your data sheet. 0 to 3 worms in that amount of soil is pretty poor. If you have 4 to 6, that's fair. There's some life out there, but it's still not doing all that well. Once we get about 7 to 9 worms per cubic foot, we're doing pretty well. We're getting life into that soil. Things are going on, and you're going to see an increase in soil structure and pore space with that. And then if you find 10 or more worms, that is excellent. That soil is functioning. It has a good population of soil organisms, and they're going to be able to do a lot of good work for that soil and for our crops. And also while we're looking through, so we want to also look for signs of worms, because sometimes worms actually move faster than you think. So sometimes the worms are able to wiggle out before we get there. In fact, even walking on the soil kind of scares them away, and digging, sometimes they're able to get out of your digging area in time to not be caught. And so we look for other signs of worms too. There's many different terms you can use, but I like calling it worm scat. So it's waste. And here is a beautiful chunk of that right here on the tip. And what that is, that's worm feces. And that is an excellent sign that you have active worms in the soil. And what it looks like, it kind of looks like soil. Sometimes it's darker, sometimes it's lighter. It all depends on where it is in your soil. But it's just like these little round mounds. You take a larger animal and you just make this smaller, and there you have, worm scat. And that is an excellent, excellent sign that we have worm activity. Also, when you see pores and channels in the soil, large ones, that indicates that that is a channel, earthworm channel, that's utilizing that. And sometimes in these channels or old root channels, you will find it filled with worm scat, and it's really neat. You'll just see a big, huge tube, full of scat. And the worm droppings are full of plant available nutrients. And so to be able to find those and have those in your soil is extremely beneficial, because what they're doing is they're eating all the residue, of course, cycling soil with it, but breaking that down in their digestive system. They're releasing it, and then that's like a buffet for the plants. This is just full of plant available nutrients. So increasing the amount of soil organisms in your soil is excellent for providing the infiltration of water and air, making our roots and our plants have to work less hard to be able to get through. But it also increases the availability of plant available nutrients, with the worm scat, but also just the processes of the soil organisms eating, defecating, dying, eating each other releases plant available nutrients. So you'll be looking for, active worms, you'll be looking for worm channels, and also worm scat. And then for roots, what we want to do, this one's kind of a messy one. As we're digging down, you want to continue to know what orientation your soils are. And so we're looking for lateral roots. And what lateral roots are roots that are growing horizontally to the side. Because when roots come down, if they hit a layer of compaction that they can't break through, what they'll do is they'll turn sideways and they'll go. Or if you have, a layer of compaction due to tillage or planting, you get those tomahawk roots, going down on each side. And we don't want to see that. We want to see nice, healthy roots that, penetrate the soil really well. And so this one is bent from being in my container. But as we're looking at the roots, we want to make sure that these roots are pretty much going vertically, starting at the top, working their way down. And so sometimes you'll see where they look really nice on the top end, but as we get down to 4, 6, 8, 10 inches, depending on what the past tillage is, you'll see them just start going sideways. And that indicates that that's a layer of compaction. And if you complete that soil compaction test with a penetrometer, that should line up with the depth that you found that compaction layer. The roots can also show you that as well. And so utilizing, a shovel to look in the soil can tell you so much about how that soil is managed, how healthy it is, and even past tillage, because that takes a while for it to break up. And so remnants of that will be there. And again, how to improve this so that we don't have roots that are lateral, again, reducing that compaction by reducing disturbances, reducing tillage, utilizing cover crops that can help break through all that compacted area so that our crops can effectively root down and utilize all the rooting area available to them instead of cutting them off and forcing them into one spot. Because also, if we're limiting our crop roots, they don't get that great anchoring effect. And then when the winds come, that can be very problematic. So those are some different ways of looking at your soil, looking at soil organisms by counting earthworms, and by looking at the roots to read them to determine if and where the compaction is in your soil.